You know, Rebels, if you've been checking out some of my promotional ads on social media, you will be aware that I have been using a lot of AI programs to help me create ads. But you know what? There's a lot more uses for AI than just funny little videos. And I'd like to introduce one of our new sponsors, Podium. It is a leader in creating AI tools for podcasters. Now, let's say you've got a podcast, or maybe you're even thinking of doing a podcast. You're probably wondering, well, how can AI be integrated with your workflow? I'll tell you about Podium. As a podcaster, you know that writing show notes and creating chapters and transcribing episodes takes a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money too. But you know what? That's where Podium comes in. It's an AI tool designed specifically for creators and podcasters with the goal of making post-production tasks quick and easy. And in just a few minutes, Podium generates show notes, chapters, summaries, clips for social media, a full transcript, suggested episode titles, social media posts, and more. Whew, that's a lot of work for one little program. Your show notes are key to your podcast's success because it helps new listeners find your podcast and they'll know if it's a fit for them. You know, kind of like Too Many Podcasts. It also improves your SEO, that's your search engine optimization. Ooh, big phrase there. And overall accessibility. And with Podium, you can focus on creating a great podcast and let Podium's AI do the heavy lifting. But Podium isn't just for solo creators and podcasters. It's a game changer for editors, producers, marketers, agencies, and production studios. Teams that use Podiums are able to increase workloads, decrease turnaround times, and improve their quality. How does it work? Very easy. First, go to Podium's website, and you'll see that link that's right there in the show notes. You get 3 hours free just to try it. Pretty cool, huh? And using that link also supports this show as well. And you know what else happens? Because I'm a good guy. You use my link, you will get 50% off for your first month. So visit the site, upload an MP3 file, and download your files, and that's it. And if you need anything else, you can use Podium GPT to generate articles and any marketing copy you might need in seconds. Instant show notes, transcripts, chapters for your podcast or channel. This will level up that podcast. So check out Podium today.
The Sherpa Screening Room is a presentation of the Sherpa's podcast picks. This show is brought to you in cooperation with the SJ Network. If you are interested in appearing on podcasts like this one, or better ones than this, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. We now bring you to the Sherpa Chalet, where Jim the podcast Sherpa has finally unlocked himself from the bathroom.
This week, on the Sherpa Screening Room, voiceover actor Charlie Weirauch III is our guest. Charlie spent many years working as a traffic reporter for different news markets. Speaking of traffic, a duck is standing next to a busy road, cars zooming past while he waits for a break in traffic. A chicken walks up to him and says, "Don't do it, you'll never hear the end of it."
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa Screening Room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpa-lution, and welcome to the Sherpa Screening Room. It is a presentation of the Sherpa's podcast picks. And my name, what is my name? Wait, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Jim, the podcast Sherpa, coming to you from Sherpa-lu Studios in the Sherpa Chalet, high atop Mount Podcastia, where we get to look out upon all those seas and seas of podcasts. And thank you so much for joining us. And my guest today might be someone whose voice may sound very familiar to you, depending on what part of the country that you live or have lived in. He spent a large portion of his career doing the news and doing those cool traffic copter reports, along with a lot of other things. I got to spend a little bit of time getting to know him, and he's a super nice guy, and the man definitely has a soothing voice. So he is venturing on out as a voice-over actor, and I think people have got to be looking for this guy really soon because I just enjoyed hearing the sound of his voice, and I think if you've never heard him before, you're going to enjoy hearing the sound of his voice. See, I mean, when people talk about the sound of my voice, it's kind of like Oh, yeah, I have an engine that needs to be fixed. That's what my voice reminds them of. Nice to know I serve some sort of purpose in your life. Anyway, his name is Charlie Weirauch III, and he is coming to us from his beloved city of Philadelphia, where he also did the news as well. So you'll have two familiar voices that will be chatting for a little bit, and I hope you enjoy it. And Charlie will be talking about his career in the news and, of course, as a voiceover actor as well. So have a listen right about now. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the Sherpa screening room. My guest today is coming to us from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Mr. Charlie Weirauch III, voiceover actor and actor, The Power of Three, of course. That's his brand. And he's here. And Charlie spent a good 40 years of his life working for the news and in radio. And it's weird because he's only 34 years old, so we're still trying to figure that math out. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you for having me on.
Now, where did you first get started when you were getting involved in the news? That was obviously a good percentage of your life.
Yeah, actually, most of my broadcasting has been on the so-called traffic side of things. Mm-hmm. I've done just about everything in radio. I've done news, weather, sports. Of course, traffic has been the bulk of it over the past almost 40 years now, coming up this January. And that's been the core of my work in radio has been traffic reporting, being a traffic anchor. I did host a radio show in the very beginning when I got into radio. I'm a Baltimore native, okay. And if you know anything about radio, we're kind of vagabonds. We move around in order to kind of climb up that broadcast ladder.
Right, following the big markets and everything.
Exactly. You've got to move to the bigger markets to make the big bucks. Mm-hmm. So I started out in Baltimore. I did like 12 years there as an airborne / mobile traffic anchor. And, eventually migrated to the other side of the fence in the management side of the business, broadcast management. And I moved out to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was out there for about almost 7 years. And, then some things happened. Some family members passed away, and my wife and I wanted to get back closer to home. And an opening came up in Philadelphia. And this is the one place that I've really had roots for the longest period of time, for the past 21 years.
So you were like the guy in the traffic copter doing the reports for the news.
Absolutely. I was an airborne traffic anchor in Baltimore from 85 to 93. And I did both radio and TV traffic reports.
You were telling me the other day that you had actually a few close calls being up that copter.
Yeah. The law of percentages become greater the longer you fly when it gets towards possible incidents. And being up there 5-6 hours a day, you're bound to see some things happen. Oh, sure. And on one occasion in the morning drive, and I've over the period of time that I've flown in just about every type of aircraft. I've flown in real small two-seaters, 152 Cessna aircraft. I've flown in 174s, 174 XPs, Tomahawk. Actually, one time when our regular aircraft wasn't up, I flew in a Cherokee, which is kind of weird to do traffic out of a Cherokee. I've flown in Bell Jet Rangers. I've flown in R-44s, helicopters. All kinds of aircraft. But on this one particular occasion, when I was anchoring AM drive traffic, and I had this really, really good pilot that would fly me in the morning and the afternoon. He was considered a master instructor, and he was an older gentleman. He was in his early 70s. And, we thought it was going to be a normal day. We get up there, and the airport where we took off from was Martin State Airport in Baltimore, north of Baltimore on the east side of town. And we were heading up towards the west side. And so we were going up towards the city. We would follow the JFX I-83 and go up towards the northwest section of the Baltimore Beltway. And as we were just northwest of the city, off in the distance, you could see this definitive front coming in from the west. It looked pretty ominous. And, as we were getting closer to the Beltway and this front is moving quicker than we thought, my pilot looked at me and he goes, Charlie, I think we're just going to go into this, or we can't outrace this, so we're going to go right in. And I kind of looked at him and I looked at what was coming and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And the next thing you know, this front is on top of us. The aircraft wings are just going back and forth. We're just getting jostled around all over the place. Ooh. And I think that was the only point in my life where I thought I wasn't going to make it. Yeah. I actually was like saying the Lord's Prayer and to myself, and it's like, oh no, is this how this is going to end for me? And he decided that, okay, we can't stay in this. Let's just turn around and, maybe we can make it back. And thank God, after he turned around, we had enough tailwind from that front and the speed of the aircraft, which managed to push us, ahead of that storm. So we're heading back as quickly as we can. We make a beeline for the airport. And as I look off in the distance to where we have to land, there was this other kind of pocket of, I guess you could say, another storm that was coming from the east, southeast. Yeah. And so we see like a bolt of lightning come down over, over the, Chesapeake Bay, Back River Neck area. And it was just a harrowing experience. He cut the approach practically in half. I mean, we just dropped a lot of altitude and then dipped into the airport. But that was probably the scariest thing that's ever happened to me while flying.
I think if that were me at that point, I would have been like, okay, I'll just walk to do the traffic. I'll look for a treat to jam and go, yep, I see it over there.
Well, you kind of like want to kiss the ground after you get down. You're like, oh man, this is incredible. I can't believe I made it out of this.
Were there any things that were very unusual that you ever saw when you were up in the copter?
I saw a lot up there. Yeah. On the I guess the bad side of things, when you're covering traffic, you cover some pretty nasty incidents.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I remember one time during a morning rush, I was getting some information from the ground that they had a pretty nasty crash on the Baltimore Beltway over on the west side, and I think it was right around Catonsville area. And as I got over the scene and we started to circle around the incident, we got there at the time where authorities were putting tarps over top of the accident vehicles because there were people inside that didn't make it. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see a lot of that when you're reporting traffic, and it goes through your mind. There are some people who left their house for the day and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And so you see enough of that, it kind of takes a toll on you.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't doubt that for a second. But at least you had some time on the ground too, though.
Yeah, and probably the funniest thing that I saw from the air, I remember an incident involving a cattle truck on 95. It was north of Baltimore. It was on the northbound side, north of White Marsh Boulevard. And as I'm getting closer to the scene, I'm looking down and I see all these people scurrying around all over 95. I see people running in the woods, and I see these animals all over the place, right? As I got closer to it, I realized there were a bunch of state troopers and, county police, and they had all kinds of boards and stuff, and they were trying to corral these pigs that were running, all over the place, across the road into the woods, and they were trying to just, get everything under control. And, it was just, it was funny at the time watching them, try to scurry around and corral these animals.
imagining, like, what if it was like a truck full of chickens and, Europe has we're actually watching the chickens cross the road. We know why. We've arrived at the answer.
Yeah. Well, there were incidents involving chickens. There was everything from syrup to milk to beer being spilled on the roadway. And of course, you can make light of some of those things depending on what they're carrying.
Right. I'm sure. So now you kind of transition your career. I mean, it's really like a natural transition, really, because people are so used to hearing your voice, doing the voiceover work, and you want to do acting as well. And I know you've already done like 10 audiobooks already.
Yes, yeah, I have, and you're right. For me, it seemed like a natural transition, and I always knew that I wanted to get into the voiceover side of things. Mm-hmm. I as a kid, I always, when I'm watching TV, I paid particular attention to a lot of these network anchors, ABC, Wide World of Sports, and this going back a ways, Jim McKay, and all of those people. Listening to the radio, Paul Harvey, mm-hmm. that man stuck out in my mind the most. The guy that could tell a story, and it was really like theater of the mind. He just painted just a fantastic picture, and he kind of backed into stories. Mm-hmm. He would start kind of from the end and then go to the beginning, and then you would ultimately find out who he was talking about. And he made a big impression on me. And from then on, I knew I always wanted to get into that phase of voiceovers, network promos, and that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And have you done like some ads and stuff like that, to like local ads using your voice? And
yeah, I've done everything from e-lessons for major corporations, global corporations, when they go and train people and bring them on board. Those videos that you have to sit through. Well, I've done some of those. As you mentioned before, I stumbled into audiobook work. And what happened was a publisher had seen some of the posts that I had made on social media, and they reached out to me. And one thing led to another. We signed a contract, and off I was running, actually narrating and fully producing audiobooks. Mm-hmm. And it's probably one of the most time-consuming things you can do in the voiceover business. You really have to be dedicated to it, and you have to have a lot of patience.
It's interesting when, like, you were talking about like watching the news and stuff like that, how like news anchors always tend to have that sort of timbre in their voice. Even like when you hear like female anchors, you notice they have more of an alto voice. You never hear like a female news anchor with like a very high, squeaky voice or anything like that. It's usually a little more in their lower range. Is that something that they train you, or is that just kind of, these are the people that we want to hire you because it's going to sound better going through the airwaves?
Well, I think radio and TV kind of has really evolved from those big, boisterous type voices that you used to hear to now. What you're hearing across a lot of these commercials is a more laid back, more connected, and more authentic type delivery. Mm-hmm. No one likes to be hard sold on anything.
Right.
And they want to be able to relate to the person that's talking to them. So it really has gotten away from that, that real boisterous tone.
Right.
You used to hear a lot of the network anchors sound like that, especially in network promos. There's a little bit of it depending on the type of promo work that you're doing, but for the most part, it's gotten down to just talking back and forth,
right?
Relaying a message and conveying an emotion.
For people who want to get started in the voiceover business, I mean, you've got obviously this vast wealth of experience with that. What's probably the best thing that they should do when they're first starting?
I would say do a lot of research and do a lot of homework. Mm-hmm. Make connections with people in the business. Do a lot of networking. Watch what some of the people are doing and what they're posting on social media. what you want to do is before you do anything is you want to figure out what you're best in doing, because there's several genres of voice work that you can get into in this business. So I think you really got to narrow it down to what you like and what best fits, your style and your delivery. Once you figure that out, then you start really hunting for coaches who can help really refine your voice and refine your delivery. And a lot of them know exactly what's going on in the business, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Once you've trained up pretty well, and also you have now a home studio that has the equipment that you're going to need to perform this type of work, then you may want to consider looking at having a demo produced. I think a lot of people in the business make the mistake where right out of the box they want to get a demo out because they want to get their voice out there and they want to try to secure business, and they find out that the demo is not really acceptable to a lot of the casting directors out there and what they're expecting to hear from you.
So what is it that they usually want, though, if they don't want a demo? What they just want to see you, they want to see how you adapt to dialogue? Is that what?
Well, they do want a demo because that's really your calling card.
Okay.
But what I'm really trying to say is make sure you're thoroughly ready before you make the step to cut a demo, like a commercial demo, right?
I got you.
That really displays some versatility, your overall delivery, how you sound, and so forth, so they can imagine, hey, I can hear that guy in this type of commercial, or woman in this type of commercial. So I would say just make sure you're thoroughly ready before you jump into having demos cut. In today's world, you have to be a good self-marketer. With social media, it's given people so many different opportunities to get themselves noticed and their work out there. I mean, 20 some years ago, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
People they were mailing stuff to people, mailing, cassette tapes and mailing CDs and all that stuff. And there was so much time and delay that went by before you would ever hear back from anyone. Now it's almost immediate.
Yeah. The voiceover guy that I work with, Bruce Goldberg, was a radio guy in Australia. And he has his own business website, and he's got he's kind of, I guess, a sample demo that shows the type of things that they can do, like if it's voices or promotions or anything like that. Actually, the intro to this show was included on his demo, which I always thought was kind of cool. It was like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. So that really gives people the opportunity to hear what you sound like and how you could sound.
That's right.
For whatever they're doing and whatever they're looking for.
Do you have a specialty with your voice?
Specialty, I would say some of the things that I'm really gearing my work towards in the voiceover business. Look, I'm going back to promos. That's number one on my list. I've got my eye on it. I'm working towards it right now, and I guarantee you, Jim, I'll be there one day. It's just a matter of time, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm in it for the long haul. So that's something I've always wanted to do, is network promos. The second thing that I really enjoy is I really enjoy narration work, and anything that has to do with narration. I love telling stories. I like the long form narration work. Some people shy away from that because it takes a lot of time, a lot of stamina, and a lot of dedication. Some people like the work that is a quick hit. I don't have to spend that much time. I spend 20 minutes behind a microphone. I get paid and I'm done. I move on to the next thing.
Right.
But, if you do something like audiobooks, and what a lot of people don't know is for every hour that you record and narrate, you have 3, sometimes 4 hours of editing and production work. And, most books are running about, let's say on the average, maybe around 10, 12 hours. So you can see where that time really begins to add up. Not only just narration, not only just the production work and mastering the audio, so it meets the recommendations by platforms such as Audible. You're also proofreading that book. So before you even pop open the microphone, you're scanning all of the pages. You're getting a feel for the author, how that author writes, and how they're conveying their story.
Right.
And you're looking for words that could possibly trip you up while you're narrating. And I always go through a lot of the pages with a highlighter, and I'm making certain colors depending on if it's a word I could get tripped up on, or I'll take another highlighter and I'll highlight some quotes, all of that
Inflections
stuff.
and stuff like that as well.
Exactly. Transitions. So I know in advance as I'm reading that story and I'm looking ahead, I know what's coming up and I know how my delivery should be. And I take my cue from there.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And I'm going to say this because, I'm an honest guy when I have my guests on and stuff. I'm sure even right now, as the people are listening to this interview, they're picking up on like the tone of your voice. And it's very friendly and comforting.
Thank you, Jim.
No, I'm serious. And I think people can like relate to that tone, you don't have like a condescending type of voice. It's like, it's soothing. Like if somebody was having a bad day and that, like, if they were listening to like an audio book that you were narrating, it probably would make it more enjoyable for them.
Wow. I really appreciate that compliment, Jim. Thank you. Thank you very much. That makes me feel very good. I think that's really how I want to convey my voice and my work.
Mm-hmm.
I honest, authentic.
And there's always a voiceovers for podcasts too.
Yeah,
you need another
exactly.
option.
Right.
You got my recommendation, my friend. You know that.
Thank you.
So, if people want to find out a little bit more about you and what you do, where should they be going?
Well, I do have a website, and my website is Weirauch, 3, vo.com.
Okay.
And so, I have information about myself, some of my specialties in the voiceover business. I also have a demo player at the top where people can listen and hear a sample of maybe some commercials, also maybe some network promos. I've got some political spots that are on there. And, that'll give them a pretty good flavor of, how I sound and what I can do. And then also down to the bottom, how you can reach me. So, a simple email,
Mm-hmm.
A message to me and a phone number, and I'll get right back to you.
Okay. And I know you're very positive about good things happening in threes. I was curious if you could maybe share something about the power of 3 in your life.
Yeah. Wow. Great question. The power of 3 and how I came up with that name. I worked with a gentleman named Corey Disson. And Corey Disson was a marketing coach and in the VO business. And, he helps people who are trying to get into the voiceover business. He teaches them how to market themselves on social media. He also has a marketing department that works with people in coming up with logos and coming up with, good websites to represent their business. Mm-hmm. And I worked with him for, I think, a period of at least a year. And we went through 3 series of names. And I always came back to that power of 3 name because it used the suffix of my last name.
Right.
And really what that power of 3 stands for me is, number one, religion. There's a 3 in 1 God. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. There are 3 people that are very important in my life, my wife, my daughter, and my son. And so, I centered a lot around both my family and, my religious belief. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to play off of my name being, Charlie Weirauch III.
Right.
And at the time, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that there was another person out there with the same last name. I always thought for the longest time that there was nobody out there named Weirauch. And all of a sudden I stumbled in as I was beginning to market myself in 2020. I began to find this guy pop up with the same last name. And, I put my name in and all I saw was his work. And he is an actor out in LA, and he was featured in one of the series called Newsroom.
Okay.
So there's another Charlie Weirauch, but not the third. So what I did, I worked feverishly to try to put out a lot of stuff on social media so that when people entered my name, they wouldn't necessarily get him all the time. They would see a lot of the stuff that I was doing. And I think I finally got to that point.
I like that. That's interesting. Okay, so here we are, Mr. Charlie Weirauch III, power of three, folks. And we got to hire this guy. We got to get this guy a nice, really interesting voiceover job so we get to hear his dulcet tones on a regular basis. Charlie, thank you so much for swinging by the show.
Thank you very much, Jim. It was a pleasure being here. I was excited to sit down for this interview this evening, and I was really looking forward to it, and I'm glad we got the chance to talk.
Be a rebel. Follow the show at Sherpa-lution on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
A very special thanks to Charlie Weirauch III for swinging on by the Sherpa Chalet, and also thanks to you for spending some time and listening here. We've got a bunch of shows coming up this season. I think there's going to be a bunch that you're going to like. I hope that you come back and that you subscribe on any of your favorite podcast apps, or even on the YouTube channel, which is called naturally Sherpa-lution. That's right, naturally. We will be heading on out to a man with a much smoother voice than mine, of course, Lord Mr. Bruce. And don't forget to message me on social media at Sherpa-lution. What a surprise. And let me know what's on your podcast playlist. Maybe there's some things that this Sherpa needs to check out, and I'll have some work to do. But thanks again so much for listening. And until next time, viva la Sherpa-lution.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpa-lu Studios production. Viva la Sherpa-lution.